Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Creative Mornings. Thanks for having me. This place is beautiful. Sadly, it's my first time in here, so I came in and it looks super fancy, dressed for the occasion. I always tell people if I wear a shirt with 3 buttons, that's semi-formal. So, so I was kind of nervous, coming to do this, and so I wanted to impress you guys, right? So here's the first thing you should never do as a speaker. Go to the website and see the past speakers. They're so pretty. I'm like, what? And I'm like, and they match their clothes. And I was like, no. And then I started when I started putting this together, I started kind of going, okay, I want to use this and this quote. And I had it all figured out last week, right? And then literally about, I don't know, maybe 2 days ago, this just hits me. It's just man, this is what I want to talk about. And so my name is Yia. We have a pop-up restaurant here in the Twin Cities. It's called Union Kitchen. It's different from the Union downtown. It's different from Union Gospel Mission. It's different from Union Depot. The word union is not exclusive, so we get mistaken for that stuff all the time, but it's cool. And so what we primarily focus on is Hmong food. And so that's what we do, and I'll get into a little bit about that. Me being Hmong, a lot of people kind of, ask me the question of how did we get here? How did the Hmong people get here? And I said, because of the great vacation homes and the beautiful weather. You leave Thailand and Laos, you come here, and it's yes, live it up. No, the story of the Hmong people and how they fit into the Minnesota narrative is a really cool, beautiful story. It starts out with the Vietnam War. So, America kind of comes in. I don't know, if there are historians here, the Vietnam War really wasn't a war, it was a conflict, never would declare war. When the government, when America came in, what was going on was they needed paramilitary troops. And so what started happening was the CIA and the US government started hiring out these people that they found that lived in the hills of Laos, and they were the Hmong people. And so if you were a Hmong boy between the ages of 14 and 20-something, or even older, you joined up because you came in, the CIA came in and trained them, and then what they would do is they would run night missions, night ops, and one of the main jobs that a lot of these Hmong soldiers did, or they're called SGU, Special Guerrilla Units. So one of the main jobs they did was the U.S. fighter pilots, the Air Force, would bomb the Ho Chi Minh Trail because that's where all the Northern Communist Party was getting all their supplies from. And if the planes were shot down in the hills of Laos, in the areas of Laos where America couldn't technically have boots on the ground, the Hmong people were hired out as the boots on the ground to go and rescue these pilots. And so for me, these were bedtime stories growing up. And because the reason why is that my dad was one of those soldiers. He fought in that. And so it was something that my dad and his brothers did. They came to the village, and the CIA caseworker would come in, and he's like, "Hey, we need people. We need guys. We need boys and men." And they started up. So there was this handshake deal that was kind of made with Hmong leadership and the U.S. government. Win or lose, you have free citizenship. Your people can come to our country no matter what happens, win or lose. There was that. America lost. Can we agree on that? America's a great country, but anyways, they lost, and the U.S. pulled out. And after the U.S. pulled out, what happened was they left the Hmong people behind. And so since the Hmong people were already disliked by the Laotian government, the Northern Communist Party came through, and there was a total genocide. And when that happened, all the Hmong people in the hills of Laos had to leave, and they made this great migration across the Mekong River into Thailand. And refugee camps were set up there. And one of the most prominent refugee camps was called V9. In 1975, V9 was set up there. And it had over 50,000 refugees there, and 90% of them were Hmong people. So that's where I was born. This is kind of I'm the one with the closed eyes there. And so that's where our family settled, and I was there. 1975 were the first refugees that came to Minnesota. And the reason why they came here was because the Lutheran and Methodist Church sponsored the first wave of Hmong refugees that came into this area. And so 1975, imagine you had nothing, you don't know anything, you come to this land where the climate is totally different from you, and then it was, hey, figure it out. And so we were part of that. There's me. I peaked at a young age, okay? I peaked. I often look at this photo and I'm like, not bad. It kind of went down from there, So that's kind of where we came from. We came here. We ended up here in Minnesota for a little bit. We moved to Wisconsin, then moved out to the East Coast, and then I lived in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. There we go. We lived with the Amish and the Mennonites, and so it was awesome because you had the white kids, right? So they were always like, what are you guys? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm a person. And then they didn't, and then they also didn't like the Mennonite and the Amish. So like the Mennonites and the Amish kids, we just became friends. So that's kind of where, and then we moved back to Wisconsin and I ended up here. So we make Hmong food, and the biggest question I always get asked is, what is Hmong food? And the best way of explaining it is I say is Hmong food isn't a type of food. It's a philosophy of food, right? If you come into our house and my mom's making you dinner, the moment you step into the house and the moment you sit down and we serve you, you eat, you enjoy with us, you talk, we get to know each other, and until the moment you leave and get into your car, that's all Hmong food. It encompasses what Hmong food is about. So when you get a group of people that have no country of their own, do not have a national anthem, do not have a flag, do not have anything that they could really carry with them, and they literally have the clothes on their backs, to come into a new country, the only things they carry with them is their recipes, their food, their hospitality, because families were broken up. Things happened, and you had to find different families. I mean, there's stories of kids who lost their families, so orphans who hooked up with another family, and then now they're your family. And so our history is rooted in that. So that, I believe, that's all Hmong food, because no matter where you put our people, no matter where we go, West Coast, East Coast, even in Arkansas, no matter where we go, we will find a way. And so, and that's what I really love about what Hmong food is about. What is Union Kitchen? Union Kitchen is that idea, is that we want to share our table with you. Because in the kitchen, that's where all the action happens, right? Everyone always, like you go into a home and you hear cleaning in the kitchen, everyone ends up in the kitchen, right? So we decided that a kitchen, and a kitchen is not defined by walls or stoves or ovens or any of that. A kitchen is, I define a kitchen two ways, where food is made and food is served. And hospitality is the thing that combines it together. So we can literally go in the middle of the street somewhere, set up a grill, set up some tables, people come and eat, and in that moment, in that time, that's a kitchen. And so that's why we wanted to call ourselves Union Kitchen. It's just not me in Union Kitchen. It's my boy Chris. Him and I, we kind of started this together. I con him to leaving the great corporation of 3M to come with me. I said, I can't promise you glories, riches, or money, but I don't know, food maybe. And so Chris does our day-to-day. He works hard, and he's young, and I love that he gets to carry the heavy boxes and stuff like that. So so it's me and Chris, and then we got a bunch of renegades and mercenary guys that are with us. We believe in Union Kitchen, we have three core convictions. We cook, we teach, we host. And those core convictions are what keeps us grounded. No matter what we do, we ask ourselves, are we cooking? I'm not talking about we're sitting there and talking about this, this idea of food. Are we really cooking? Is there fire? Is there sizzling? Is there that sense of smell? We teach. If you come to our pop-ups, you come to our dinners, we're teaching you about our food, our culture, our people. When we want to learn from you, and you're teaching us. And then we host. I believe the hospitality is the greatest thing that you can do. When somebody comes in your home and you give them a cup of water, that's hospitality. You are hosting them. So those are the 3 core convictions that we believe. We also believe in Union Kitchen that every dish has a narrative. And within that narrative, you follow it long enough and close enough, you get to the people behind the dish. And once you're there to the people behind the dish, it's no longer about food, but it's actually about people. So I believe that food is the catalyst into cultivating great relationships. You know how I know this? Because I grew up in college. We're a bunch of dumb college kids, and we would sit around eating stale chips and like salsa that was definitely overdue with the little white crust on it, you know what I'm talking about? And we loved it. And there was community built over that. Like the food doesn't even have to be that good, you know? And so that's what I firmly believe. And so what I really want to do is show you that that every dish has a narrative in it. And the reason why is, or an example is I want to show you this. So for the vegetarians, vegans, I'm sorry. But there's this dish. It's an iconic Hmong dish. It's, what you learn. Okay, so in the food world, if you give it a sexy name, you can upcharge $5. I'm gonna put it out there. It's true. But the actual translation of this Hmong dish is chicken and herbs, or boiled chicken. That's basically what it's called. You can't charge for that. But if you give it a better name, and you can. So what it is literally in this dish. It's like an kind of an older chicken. You take that and you stew that chicken, and then you add these different herbs and aromatics. And that dish is made, so in our culture, in our belief, after a mother goes through labor and delivery, what happens is there's the belief, and I totally believe it, that their bodies go through this traumatic thing, right? I totally agree. To all the moms, I agree. It's not like I'm like, oh, they're making this up, aren't they? No, I totally agree. And to condition the body back in our culture, after a Hmong woman goes through labor and delivery, for a whole month, this is what she would eat. It would be, I know, that was rough. I know my sister-in-law's like, I cheat. I get your brother to get me ice cream sometimes. And also, so they would eat this dish, and the nutrients from the bones and the herbs have medicinal purposes, and that would help heal the woman's body. And she ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a month. My girlfriend asked me, she goes, am I going to have to do that? And I'm like, hey, my culture, babe, you can't, don't hurt it. So there's that belief. And so what also happens, too, is in our culture, after a woman goes through labor and delivery, it is believed that she should not have to lift a finger for a month. So then the mother or the mother-in-law will come and live in, and, right, hey. My people are very progressive people, okay? Like, yeah, we know, we formed the way. No, so a lot of times, like when my sister had her kids, and they lived down in New York, she was doing grad school. My mom would fly out for a month, and that's, she would do that. And so a lot of times, the mother-in-law would come in and live in the house for a month, and she'd do all the cooking, cleaning, taking care of the family while while her body heals up, right? And so we named this dish the mother-in-law chicken soup, and so that's our name, and now we can charge extra $5 for it. But the reason why is when you listen to this story and you know this story of how this dish came to be, there's something in you that kind of livens up, right? Because when I tell this story, I get people from all walks of life that goes, oh my gosh, that's like our matzo ball soup. That's our chicken noodle soup. And in that moment, for that half second, we connected, from people from all over different types, from all different parts of the world. And so that's what's amazing about food. And so here we get to this point where I ask myself, where did I get this love of food and using food to tell a story from? To do that, I'll be honest, I never wanted to be a cook. Like, I tried every way to get out of it. I tell people, me and cooking was like, you guys might be able to, riff with me on this, but me and cooking is like that ex-girlfriend you keep breaking up with, but like every summer you get back with, and then you break up again, and then you're like 15 years in, you're like, what are we doing? So Hopefully, none of you guys brought one of those with you. Just looking at each other. No, so that's how it was me with cooking and in the kitchen. I never, like, I was like semi-good at it, but I never wanted to do it. I went to college to be I majored in interpersonal communication and minor in PR and marketing, like nothing to do with the kitchen, right? Never went to culinary school or anything. But there was something that kept drawing me back to that kitchen. There was something that kept, and so I tried it, and I got burned out. I got burnt out. I did the cooking thing, got burnt out. I just got mad at everyone. You're just grumpy half the time. But one of the things is that today we were talking about intention, and I'll be honest, I never had any intention of doing this. And this is not like just me going, oh, I never thought about it, but it was never on my radar that to be able to tell the story through food. Because when I was growing up and I was in the kitchen, it was just like, okay, kid, put your head down, cook. It's like 800 degrees back here, and like, and so that's what it was. But what changed that? Okay, so that's what I want to really dissect with you guys, is what changed that. And so I want to tell you this story. I read this story, and it's amazing. Out in Kodiak Island, out in Alaska, there's this trail. There's this trail where this writer and outdoorsman, he writes a story about. There's this trail where he looks in the trail, and it's the paw prints of all these Kodiak bears, right? And the trail actually is the trail that leads to where the water is for the salmon, and also leads out of it. And as he looks in that trail, he sees that these paw prints aren't fresh, but they're probably hundreds and maybe even thousands of years old. Because Mama Bear and Daddy Bear came through and pounced out this trail so that the cubs would follow it. And then when they get older, their cubs would follow it. And it was these trail that these bears would walk through, because they knew where it would lead to food. And it would lead to safety. It would lead to home. And as he's writing about this, he just talks about how even in nature, in animals, they follow trails. And so I started thinking about that. As we started cooking, I started thinking more about that. And I thought about, for me, what is that? Well, what is that trail, right? So at first, I just thought about the trail. It was really silly. I just kept, oh, what's that trail? What's that trail? What changed me was I thought about who made those trails. And once you think about it that way, it changes the way that you think. It changes the way you work. It changes the way you become creative. It changes the way you design. It changes you. There's this Greek word called archegos. That word means trailblazer. And then I often think of that word when I think of my mom and dad. So my mom and dad, I can't talk about them enough, right? So I don't know. I was trying to write this in not like ugly girl cry, but hopefully I don't do it up here. Just like hold the camera. No, but I think of my mom. Like, she's 62 years old. Her birthday was just last week. I totally forgot. She's barely 5 feet tall, right? She's got gray now. But my mom always made sure we had food. No matter how tough it got, she always made sure we had food. And there was always a way of her finessing, finding something in the house that we could eat. Like, I never knew that we had financial struggles growing up as a family because my mom made sure that there was always food on the table. Does that make sense? Because the moment food isn't on the table anymore, kids are smart, right? They're like, wait, like, why can't we buy food? But there was always food on the table. My mom also, she would be the first in the kitchen to make us dinner. And as a kid, we come in, we eat, and then she'd be the last at the table to eat. And in that way, she showed me kind of stomping out those trail, kind of that, that trailblazer there. My dad, he taught me everything I know how to grill over pit fire. Like, I would love hanging out with my dad as a kid, right? And we would sit there and he would grill, and I would purposely stay closer to him so that that smoke would hit me and my clothes would smell like smoke because I could smell like dad, I would stand there. I remember when I was 12 and the first time my dad handed me the tong because he had to go inside to get something, and I grabbed that tong and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's game time. It is on. Like, you've been training this your whole life for this moment. And I failed right away because I turned it too quick or something like that. But it was, I wanted, My dad literally fought a war to get our family here to this country. He believed in that promise when the U.S. government came in and says, fight here with us, win or lose, your family will be safe in America. They did that. He lost some brothers, he lost his dad, but they all did that for us, right? So these are the trailblazers, and I can't neglect that, right? So I would love to sit here and talk to you guys about how, oh yeah, we're doing this kind of food, and we're trying to do this, and we're innovating this for our people. Like, as much as I love our people and love all these great things that our people are doing, which I do, everything is very easy once you strip it down. Like, to two people. That's it. These two people that unconditionally loved me, that show me everything I know today, like who laid the groundwork to being what a good man is. So what does this have to do with intention? So, I went in and I looked at the word intention, and it means an aim or a plan. I'll be very honest with you guys. When I was in high school, cooking at this racetrack, it's in central Wisconsin, I had no aim, I had no plan. It was simple. Get to college, play football, meet one cute girl, that's all I was asking, and maybe come out with a college degree, right? I barely made it to college. Football didn't work out. Met cute girls, they never met me. Okay, I'm doing okay now, okay? Barely got a college degree. Took me about 7 years for something that was supposed to be 4. And if you were going to talk to me about intentions, I had these great aims, these great plans, and never came to tuition. And through those times, my archegos, my trailblazers, were the ones who kept me center. And so here's the thing. Intention changes when I stop focusing on me and start focusing on the ones who are my trailblazers. My mom and dad, they had to become less so that I can become more, right? So I was a kid, I was a stupid kid. I was like in my teens or something. I got really mad at my dad. I said something really mean. It was, I don't know, when you're a teen, that's called every other week. And my grandma pulled me aside and she said, what you don't know is your father, when we were back in the villages in Laos, he was one of the most respected men in our village. And men would come to him for advice. And here in America, he can't barely get a job as a janitor sweeping floors. So my grandma, man, she would look at me, she's like, you have to realize what your father did for you, for all of you kids, so that you can have this opportunity. And that stuck with me. My grandma passed away a few months ago, and I mean, that's all I remember when I went to her funeral. Grandma sitting me down and talking to me about that. Their love is unconditional. It was limitless. I mean, another great story of that is my mom. I remember my freshman year, I think it was like 2-3 months into college. I was sick. They called. At that, we still had landlines. Some of you guys remember landlines, right? Okay. I didn't have a cell phone, so I used a landline. I called my mom and left a message, and it was 10. I lived about 3 hours away from college, right? And it's 10 at night, I remember. My mom couldn't sleep, and my dad told me, she couldn't sleep. She woke up. They went to Walgreens, drove down, literally, just to buy me some Tylenol cold syrup, and handed it off, and drove back. Even at that, I was, 18, 19, where most kids are like, hey, I'm an adult, leave me alone, Mom. I was still her boy, right? That's the unconditional love I'm talking about. My dad, I mean, he gave me this great, I was in college. I was going through some, in my early 20s. I can say that now? That's weird. In my early 20s, I was going through some of these kind of rough patches, and my dad sat me down, and I was, I was kind of wandering around, and my dad said to me, he said, son, I want you to know that this is home. We are your home. And no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you say about us or how you disown us or if you're mad at us, this will always be home. You can always come back to my house. because this house is your home. We're your family. He would say, I'm your father, and I'm not going to ever stop being your father. That gave me the freedom to dream. That gave me the freedom to risk, right? How amazing is it that you can go out there, fail miserably on your face when you feel so embarrassed, but you know that I have a place in my Father's home. That I can come home, and no matter what happens, there's still a seat for me at the table here. And I could reject them all I want, but I can always come back. That gives you this freedom to be creative, right? That gives you this freedom. It's a release from guilt. And my father, when he said that to me, it started releasing my heart. It started softening my heart. You know, my father didn't lay down his life to come to America to live the American dream. You know, he laid down his life so that he could come to America so that we had a chance at the American dream. My parents are kind of old now. They love being called old. But I know I'm a better cook. I'm a better friend. I'm a better son. Not because of my own strength, but because of my mother, who courageously prayed and encouraged me and believed in me when I didn't want to believe in myself. When I felt like a failure, when I felt like I just want to lock myself in the room, when I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. And some of us, we've been there. My father, I couldn't have done this without my father, who ferociously loved me and forgave me, even though many times I would break his heart, making promises, I won't do it again, Dad, I won't do it again, I'll get it right this time, Dad. His love still kept coming through. So when you guys feel lost, and you ask yourself, what are my intentions? What is my aim? When you feel like there's just this mist in this storm, think about, who are your archegos? Who are your trailblazers? Who are the ones that have led the way? Who are the ones that paved the way so that you guys could dream, so that you guys could take the risk, so that you guys can do what you are passionate about? And even if you do fail, you always have a place at the table. Thank you so much for having me.